So, the show is over, and what do you do with your life now? You pick the next play. So, play selection is an incredibly daunting task, albeit a very fun one. I can say from experience, sometimes it takes me months to pick a script. Sometimes it's there waiting for me, it's already come to mind, but I have found over the years that there is a reliable process to go through. It may not speed up the arrival of the perfect script, but it does at least ensure that I end up with the right script. So accept of this what you would like. And I've tried to put this in the order that I think I process this information, but that's not to say that that is the only or even the best way to consider these ideas. All right, I am right now representing The Crucible. The Crucible was selected because it was very challenging. From an actor's perspective, The Crucible was extremely challenging. The characters were very multifaceted. The language was difficult. Staging was difficult. The concepts were difficult. It was even going to be challenging for the community to see it and deal with the questions that this play presented. And that was the perfect play for that year. Marat Sade. All right, now, Marat Sade was the product of months of time, hard work, and dedication on a Disney musical. After working on Beauty and the Beast for a while, we needed something a little bit more edgy and intense and a little questionable even at times. Thus, Marat Sade. This was exhausting, physically, emotionally, mentally. We had to analyze the French Revolution. There was a great deal of dramaturgy involved in this show. It was an intellectual exercise as much as it was an acting exercise. Similar to Arcadia. Arcadia is one of the most cerebral plays in the English language, written by a master, Tom Stoppard. And Arcadia was the perfect show for a group of extremely intelligent people who would have an opportunity to learn some really good acting basics, staging, balancing, levels, and all that kind of thing. This is an extremely literary show. Now, that brings us to Archipelago. Archipelago, though it was the product of a great deal of research, was not a very cerebral play. The playwright created this as part of her graduate thesis. She traveled to Russia. She interviewed survivors of the archipelago of concentration camps throughout Russia. And based on those interviews, she created this play, a string of vignettes. One of those situations that some of you might be familiar with, where one actor plays multiple roles. It was an ensemble piece. Well, we wanted to do something that was an ensemble piece. We wanted to do something that was emotionally gripping and raw. We wanted to do something that really wreaked havoc with people's feelings. And so we did something that involved a lot of death and a lot of intensity, and that was the perfect show. Now, how to know if it's the perfect show? First of all, consider your gut reaction. Can you visualize this as you read it? Do you actually feel inspired by it? Do you think that there is enough vision and enough inspiration to fuel months of rehearsal? Months of digging into characters, months of trying to create props and things. Is this worth it? And more often than not, the gut reaction will tell you whether or not it is going to be worth the endeavor. All right, beyond the gut reaction, you have the realities you have to deal with. It could be the most compelling play you've ever read in your life, but if you don't have the cast for it, it's not going to work. Not right then. So, things to consider specifically about the cast. Leads. Do you have, and it's a little painful to say this, but you just have to be brutally honest, do you have the people to play leads? Look at your cast. You know yourselves. You know each other. Do you have a strong male lead? Do you have a strong female lead? Do you have several strong leads? Do you have lots of people who work together very, very well, but not necessarily somebody who stands out as the lead, somebody you would center the play around? And we know that that's how a lot of scripts are structured. Okay, so that connects with the strengths. What kinds of strengths do we have as an ensemble? And how can we play to that? Now, on the other side of that, where do we need to grow / want to grow? Have we done something yet that absolutely exhausts my ability to represent a very truthful person? That really hinges on relationships between characters. Well, if not, then maybe that's the challenge that you really want to go for. In choosing Alice, the goal was to create this seamless ensemble, which we totally nailed. And so we've got to decide for this next play, what is the goal, the personal goal, the ensemble goal? How are we going to grow this time? Another really painful reality check, budget. All right, you got to think about how much can we realistically spend on the set or the costuming. Yes, The King and I is beautiful. It would also cost thousands of dollars just to costume, let alone anything else involved in the production. So just be really realistic about that. If it would completely break the bank, it really is not worth the stress of it. If you can't do it right, let's not do that one. So consider that. Now, that's not to say that you cannot do an historical script. There are creative ways of handling costuming like that, but I mean, are we talking about multiple costumes for each character? I mean, just face it, it's going to cost about, whether we rent or we make from scratch, it's going to cost about $75 per dress for most kind of, fluffy periods. We might could swing that, for one costume per person, but are we talking about 8 women who have 5 different dresses? Completely different budget situation. Okay. Now, back to the things that are more internalized, the message. Okay. First of all, you got to think about the audience. Is this a message that your audience would benefit from? Perhaps even that your audience needs? Who is your audience? Are you going to be speaking primarily to children? Are you going to be speaking to peers, your community, a larger audience? And separately, is it a message that your audience is willing to accept? Sometimes the message can be extremely timely in the eyes of the performers, but it's not something that will be received, and therefore you would be pouring out your souls and your sweat on a deaf audience. The purpose. Do you have a fulfilling enough purpose to make this a worthwhile endeavor? Passion. Is this message, not just the look of the show or the idea of the show, the message, the life lesson of the show, something that you are passionate enough about to make this a worthwhile endeavor? Theater is about so much more than recreating life or reflecting life. And then the last thing to consider is the metaphor. Are you able, with this particular script that you are considering, to crouch down in front of the door of the script and peer through the keyhole and see the thing that is inside, that acts as a symbol that represents all of the show? If you cannot see that particular image, this is probably not the right show for this moment. Best of luck and enjoy digging through all of these scripts. It's always such an adventure.